Hi there, I'm Mickey Brown, and this is my lovely assistant today and my beautiful wife, Maureen. And what we're going to do today is talk to you about the tradition of wreaths and wreath making. And I'm going to demonstrate how to make a wreath, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about its history, and we'll go from there. By the end of this, we'll have a beautiful decorated wreath for you to enjoy. So, without further ado, I'm going to start with a wreath frame that you can buy at a local craft shop, wherever you do your craft shopping. And most of the things that I'm using today, we've gathered from our own yard. We're lucky to have things like white pine, the arborvitae, and the green spruce, which is what we're going to use today to make the base of our wreath. So, in making a wreath, let me tell you a little bit about the history first. The history of the wreath goes back to the ancient Romans, and when somebody won a contest, an athlete or a battle or anything like that, they would get a wreath and they would wear it. They started wearing it on their heads. They were presented this wreath from the emperor or from the Caesar at that time. So they would take this wreath home and they would adorn the front of their home, either the portal of their door or inside on the wall. And that's where the wreath then became this decoration. It meant you were a champion. It meant that you were victorious. The wreath itself is circular, so it has this whole infinity or eternity feeling to it. It never stops. There's not a beginning or an end. It's the Alpha and the Omega, which then translates into Christianity and how it became the symbol of Christ. And in the Middle Ages, the Christians in Europe would take the evergreens, which also, as you know, their name is evergreen, so the long-lasting never-ending season greens would last for a long time. So what I've done here is taken some white pine. The white pine is the longer needle pine, and I've cut it into smaller pieces. It grows actually on these big branches, so you just cut it into smaller pieces and you make a cluster as such in your hand. I also have attached this spool of wire to my wreath frame, and that's what we're going to use to tie these greens to the frame. So by just wrapping that wire around 2 times, and that gives it a nice sturdy tie. It's not going to go anywhere for you. So today I'm going to do a pattern of 2 clusters of white pine and 1 cluster of arborvitae. Now arborvitae has 2 different sides. One side is dark and one side is light. I'm going to use the lighter side so that there's contrast between the white pine and the arborvitae. So by just tying that in there 2 or 3 times around is sufficient. And then the green spruce. Now the green spruce is the only one here that's a little prickly. So I do wear a gardening glove when I'm working with green spruce. So 1 cluster of green spruce. I'm going to repeat that pattern. Now you could take a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and put it all together in 1 cluster, and just do that with mixed clusters, and you're just going to get a different feel to it. Wreaths are made out of so many different things, and tell you a little history about myself. I was in the floral industry for 45 years, and that's why this is my tradition. I spend all those years preparing decorations and garlands and wreaths for people's homes and businesses. So I would tie wreaths for them every year. The wreath also can be used as a memorial. Maureen, I'm going to need a little bit more white pine. So whether you put it on a loved one's grave or somebody who's served in the military, you often see wreath ceremonies at the White House or Arlington Cemetery. But going back to my tradition, my tradition is to make these wreaths. Now, I'm since retired from that industry, and this year I'm making this primarily to decorate our home. So, using the white pine, I started to say that wreaths get made out of a lot of different things. And over the years in my business, people would come to me to make wreaths out of eucalyptus and out of grapevine. And the strangest thing that people came to me to make a wreath out of, and there were a lot of different things, but this one woman came into the flower shop, and she had this big bag of silver dollars, this big bag of silver dollars with Ben Franklin. I'm sure you've seen them. So I looked at her and I thought, how am I going to attach these? I can't wire them. Can I glue them? So as I was making it, I had a technique that I found, and I was making a beautiful wreath about this big around for her front door. And as I was finished, I looked up and I said, look, I made a wreath of Franklin's. Huh. All right then. So that's my wreath joke. It ends up looking like this. So when you get to the end of tying your wreath, you want to lift up where you started, and you want to tuck some greens in underneath, and then bring the long needle pine over top of that so that it looks lush and full. But I always like to take my ribbon, my bow, and put that right where the connection is to hide that spot. Little camouflage, if you will. Bow making, I mean, you can buy your bows made, but over the years I've made hundreds and thousands of bows. So I sit at television and just make bows like people knit in front of the TV. But bows are made up of a series of loops and ends. So when you're making a bow, if you have wired edged ribbon, it's a little bit easier. But there's always a good side and a bad side to the ribbon. And you want to make sure that the good side is always on the outside of that loop, and that the lesser attractive end is on the inside. So by making loops of a little bit different sizes, as you get go along, make them a little bit bigger, start out small and make them bigger. And then at the end, I always make a nice, long, big loop. Hold that all in my hand. I take a little bit of that wire that I was using to tie, and I put it through that loop in the middle. Now that big loop that I made, that is going to end up being two streamers. And you can cut little fishtail ends on it, but I always just cut it on an angle. And the reason I cut it on an angle rather than straight across is because I can never cut it straight across. So I might as well cut it on an angle. So as I said, here's where we ended up. And I'm going to end up putting the bow right in there. Take it right around the wreath frame, tuck it in between the greens, and tie it off. Now I've left enough wire on the back end of this to make a hook or a loop. So bring the ribbon streamers down. Alright, so today we're going to decorate this. I have some pine cones. I was working ahead, so I put a piece of wire on each pine cone so that I can take that and put it right through the wreath frame and through the evergreen and tie it on securely. Every time you have a wire, make sure your wire is bent back into the wreath frame so that you don't end up scratching your door and nobody puts their finger on it. This summer we grew a couple flowers in the backyard. It has some hydrangea, and it dried so pretty, and I painted it gold. And comb. So there's some dried flowers. So again, everything that I have here, I haven't gone anywhere for anything other than the ribbon. I'm working with a glue gun. And when you work with a glue gun, as many of you know, it's hot. It's called a hot glue gun for a reason. And I work with a bowl of water right here. If anything should happen while I'm working with the glue gun, that I can put my finger directly or my hand directly into the hot water, the cold water, so that I minimize any burn I would get. So that's a little tip. So whatever you choose to do with your decorating, decorating is always the fun part. Tucking, picking, and making it colorful the way you want it. So the last few different things to add to this. I did buy some walnuts and mixed nuts. So again, just glue that and put it in there so that you have this nice assortment of nuts and berries on it too. Again, being very careful not to get any glue on yourself. Alright, the last thing we're going to add is some red berries. I did get artificial berries, only because I don't have any in my yard. Apply the glue. I usually just put it on the stem, and it ends up being caught in there, in amongst the greens and the other things that are in here. These spider webs, if you will, from the glue gun. And there's a couple different ways you can get rid of them. One is to pick them off like I'm doing. The other is to take just a hair dryer and carefully, not getting too close, just heat the glue up again, and it dissipates the finished product. This year we're looking forward to decorating, even though we won't have company. We talked about still making everything look pretty so that we lift everybody's spirit, and we hope you've enjoyed our traditions here at Mickey